If the Bible is to be understood, then every people and nation that it speaks of, you had better be a scholar about those people. You had better be a historian about said culture. Because how do you correctly understand the mention of several people groups that the Bible mentions, but you have no understanding of them? So, in other words, there are many people who say that they follow the Torah and they keep the commandments in the Bible and they know the whole Bible. But if you give them a children's test on Kemet or Sumer, they fail with flying colors. To which I say, how, Sway? Because the Bible mentions those two people groups in several places. So how are you, as an Israelite, not an affluent historian when it comes to said cultures? How do you say that you can give an authoritative opinion when the Bible gives mention of them if you fail an elementary test about them?
Damn. Yes. Yes, sir.
And so I learned from very good men and women who taught me the importance of coming outside of your comfort zone and studying and learning everything. Remember, this is why Dr. Ben became so great. Dr. Yosef ben Yohachanan, which everyone knows as Dr. Ben, graduated from the Israelite Rabbinical Academy in the year 1977. But he never limited his studies. He continued to study Afrocentric culture and learning and furthered his studies that took him to where he ultimately becomes known for in the community and the world moreover. And he was able to speak at any prestigious institute, university, or gathering anywhere around the world, not because of any one ideal he held, but because he was a master of many ideals and objective in conveying them. And so, while many in my community may not like him as an example, I use his example because I understand that what made him great was the fact that he did not limit his knowledge. David says in the Psalms, "From all my teachers, I grew wise." He didn't say from One West, I found everything. He didn't say from IUIC, I got all the jewels I need. David says in the book of Psalms, "From all my teachers, I acquired wisdom." The heart behind that statement is that one should have many teachers. And here's this beautiful enigma about life. Every single person you meet in life is your teacher. How can that be said?
That's real talk.
Let me explain. How can that be said? Let me explain. Let's give the obvious. What about the wrong and evil guy? He's not my teacher. The dummy, the fool, they're not my teachers. Yes, they are. Because their life is an example for you to know what not to do. They are your teachers in that respect. You know what my dad told me years ago was the difference between a wise man and a smart man? He said a smart man requires life experiences, whereas a wise man sits back, observes, and watches everybody's experiences and knows and learns how to move and how to behave and how not to make the mistakes of the smart people. Hence, he's the wise because he's able to sit back, observe, recalibrate, and not have to go through experiences in order to become great, because he's able to truly immerse himself in observation of everyone around him, because his humility teaches him that everybody in my circumference, everybody that I'll ever meet is my teacher in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Even if it is that I learn not to do as they do, is how we find true enlightenment, growth, empowerment, and elevation.
All right. Now, I want to ask you on the reverse side, because I believe that the Kemetic teachers out there need to also study the culture of the Hebrews, of the Israelites. And when I bring this question to a lot of them, they say, I don't want to study that. Oh, that's garbage. Oh, that's this and that's that. I believe that you need to study the Hebrew if you're going to talk or try to teach about the Bible. So go ahead, brother.
That's why I had the luxury through HOK Summit at the House of Consciousness to sit with the beloved master teacher, Grand Master Teacher Mfudishi.
Right.
Mfudiji once said, walking through the halls of the Met Museum, he said, if I hear that someone is an imam, a Muslim imam, I expect that they know some Arabic. He says, if I hear that someone is a Catholic priest, I expect that they can chant and know either Greek or Latin. If I hear that someone is an Israelite, I expect that they know Hebrew. If I hear that someone's a Kemetic priest, then I want to see some Menunetra. There are a lot of people that say that they are practitioners in various spiritual spaces in all communities, but when given elementary tests on what should be considered the basics, which is understanding of culture, history, and language, they fail with flying colors. How are you a master practitioner in said culture and you have elementary skills in the history, culture, and language? If the best you do with Hebrew is say Shalom, Khan, and Ak,
right,
then you're a
right.
horrible Hebrew.
Right.
If you cannot enter into at least a semi-dialogue with a fellow speaking Hebrew, you are a horrible Hebrew.
All right, here's a hard question for you. It's easy, but you're going to have to think about this because you might step on some toes. You yourself don't read the King James. Do you think it's very important for those who do and call themselves Israelite to get up out of that and grab that Torah?
Good question. Let me contextualize what you're saying. I do read the King James. I have it on my shelf. Several copies and several later editions of the King James, the New King James Version, right? But I don't trust the translation because I am a Hebrew linguist and a Hebrew grammarian. So I can spot where there are errors to the extent that the error interferes with interpretation of the text. And that's the problem that we have with some of the versions of the Bible. Some of the versions of the Bible are so grossly mistranslated that it interferes with interpretation. But again, Sarnetta, we have to be honest. There's a work known as the Runu per Heru. And that work differs based on whose interpretation and whose version of it you're reading. If you go into Wallace Budge's interpretation of the Runu per Heru, the book for the coming forth into life, or book for the coming forth into the day, misnomer, the book of the dead, everyone will tell you you'll find manifold mistranslations that interfere with proper interpretation. You can go into Raymond Falk's translation, which most regard higher than Budge's, but still find errors in translation that interfere with interpretation. So all I say, Sonetta, is while we can say this about the Bible, we can say this about everything.
Yes. Now, but how does God writes the Bible in Greek, the King James I'm talking about? How does God allow this to happen? If it's from God and he's sending it to his people, why Greek?
It's a great question. And so when you say from God came the Greek, I want you to be specific. What are you talking about?
Well, was it inspired by man to write the book in Greek language? Because we know the New Testament was written in Greek. Am I right?
Right. So many people living in that day and time were Greek speakers. Many Israelites were Greek speakers. And so to the extent that many of them had lost the Aramaic and Hebrew vernacular of their ancestors, right? There's coming a time where Greek is becoming a more dominant or more competed language base in that small region in the world. And so there's some who are trying to be like Rome, who are more studious in Roman and Greek vernacular, and there are some who are holding to the tradition of their ancestors, such as verified through the oral tradition, that they still know the Aramaic and the Hebrew. So to answer your question, because some of my answer is technical, but it has to be technical part of my answer because I have to also speak to a community that knows better than to make some of the mistakes that can be misconstrued within what is being said generally. So the Greek Bible is not inspired by God at all, right? It's not inspired by God. When we speak of those books, those writings which are inspired, we're talking about the Hebrew Bible, right? Even the Catholic Church agrees. There's even a statement in the Apocrypha that speaks towards the original language of Hebrew being the greatest language to bring out the fulfillment and interpretation of Scripture. That's said right in the book of the Apocrypha, that the strength of the Scripture is in its Hebrew translation and interpretation.
I'm talking to Zion Lex right now.
Yeah, give Zion my regards.
All right, go ahead. You can tell him. He can hear you. Go ahead.
Hey, shalom, brother Zion. How you doing?
Hey, shalom, shalom. Is that Professor Small?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, shalom and hotep to you.
He's saying shalom to
Can you
you.
hear me?
I'm trying to get you on the Bluetooth, but it's not connecting. Let me see. Hold on. Hold on. Ah, it ain't going through. Yeah, because I got the mic on there, so yeah, he can't hear you. But he says
right.
shalom to you as well, Professor.
Yes.
Everybody can hear you right now.
Okay, well, Zion is a good young scholar, and I hope he takes advantage of his time to teach and do the research.
Yes.
I like his research method.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way he does research.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, a lot of people do research to answer their question, but he does research to find the answer, and that's the way you do research.
Yes, yes, sir.